Week 7 was an absolute mess. There was a lot of bad football. There were a lot of bad games. There was some bad weather. It had pretty much everything. There were some injuries too. So just a weird week overall. Today we're going to go through all of it and recap what it means for DFS, try to find our footing for week number 8, go through some salaries for week 8, and get you set for what it all means for NFL DFS. Welcome on into the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire. That's right here on the Fanduel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, joined here as always by Brandon Gadula. He is the managing editor for numberFire.com. Brandon, week 7 was a strange one. How are you doing today?
I mean, that's always a hard question to answer just like philosophically and existentially anyway. But after this past week, it's
as deep as you want.
It's even harder. Not a whole lot went the way that I was hoping it went. And by hoping, I mean just the way that my analysis said it would go. Mm-hmm. It happens. I'd say there's probably 1 or 2 weeks each year where you just look back and you're like, what did I even get right?
Yeah.
So what I could do, what I should have done probably is just talk about how I love the Kyle Pitts, Mike Gesicki, like tight end stack.
Sure. I mean, we could do that. There are other ways to do it. I think that like if you had told me on Thursday that week 7 would be terrible for me, I would have said, okay, it's probably because I was too low on the heavily favored teams. But you look at the players and perfect lineups. Only 2 of them, Cooper Kupp and Mike Evans, were on those heavily favored teams. Everyone else was in a tighter game, except for DeAndre Swift, who was actually a massive underdog. So 3 out of the 9 options in perfect lineups were in the closer games of this slate. So I could have seen this being a bad slate for me. This is not the way I thought it would happen, I guess. Like I thought, okay, maybe I'd stack the wrong guys in the Chiefs-Titans game, something like that. I didn't really know. Like I try to ask myself always, like, what are the paths of this going poorly? And I can usually figure out a way. I would not have guessed that like the Chiefs just fell on their faces and Derrick Henry's game script was too positive. Leonard Fournette's game script was far too positive. I would not have guessed those as being the ways that I was wrong this week.
Yeah. If I was doing the same thing and it was, hey, it just wasn't a good week, I would say, okay, that means most likely that Chiefs Titans wasn't what I thought it was going to be, which it wasn't.
Correct.
And then I would have gone to the big favorites, and that would have been wrong. I actually was looking at some Jamar Chase, and just some Ravens overall, and I was like, you know what? We talked about the pace there. It's a divisional matchup. Those games can be, and it started off pretty slowly, from my recollection, and then like. It always sucks to say, well, if you take Jamar Chase's like long touchdown out, it wasn't that. But like, it's always unfortunate whenever you do fade a situation and someone just like
I had Chase, but he was tied to Lamar in every line.
Yeah.
So like, I think that might have been something for me too, is like, I know we don't want to get too spread out of quarterback, but I think 60% of my quarterback lineups were either Mahomes or Tannehill, which Tannehill was fine. But then he was tied to Tyreek Hill or Darrell Williams, something like that each time. So maybe spreading out my games more might be more effective. I don't know.
So that just comes down to probabilities and what you're seeking. If you're looking for a higher floor, even in your tournament lineups in terms of your overall exposure, then mixing that up more is going to be helpful. But if you are willing to be more concentrated, that's like, whenever you have lineups with Jamar Chase, you want to make sure that, or whenever, I guess a better example is whenever you have a lineup with a quarterback who has a big game, you want to maximize the chances that one of those lineups actually had Jamar Chase in it, as opposed to, like 2 to 3 lineups of every quarterback. The odds, then the probability that you hit on the Jamar Chase lineups are a lot lower, and it goes down like exponentially. And I'm not a math guy, but I've learned enough about probability to know that like one or two
Right.
quarterbacks that you can take out of your lineups just help
Well,
the chances that you.
and it's not that polar where like I wouldn't be going like, oh, well, every quarterback is
No,
more
no,
so like maybe not 60% tied to one game.
yeah, yeah. I'm just saying, like, you and I have been a lot more concentrated at quarterback than I think most people,
Correct.
and so if people listening are already more like playing 6 or 7 quarterbacks and they're thinking maybe they spread it out more, I would advise against that, even though you have weeks where you don't really hit on the quarterbacks.
Yeah. Just divorce myself from one game, I think is the key takeaway for me. We're going to break down headlines, injuries, role changes, and take a look at week 8 in just 1 second. But first, NBA is back, and so is FanDuel's free over-under contest. It's simple. Just head over to FanDuel.com/over-under and choose either over or under for each listed prop. You can make free picks for a chance to win a share of $5,000. All you got to do to make your picks is go to FanDuel before every NBA on TNT broadcast for your shot at a big payday. Eligibility restrictions apply. Go to FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app for more details. Let's dive in here to our week 7 headlines here. And the big one is the Chiefs offense, because I think in general, we have been hesitant to overreact to the Chiefs in large part because they've still been good. Like, despite the turnovers, their offensive efficiency numbers are still really absurd. And we know that turnovers can be fluky. So that's why we were so heavy in this game. That's why we're so heavy on the Chiefs. And it bankrupted me on Sunday. Mahomes checked and cleared for a concussion. He was actually at the post-game press conference, which means he did not have a concussion, probably means he will play in week number 8, but really struggling before that. Negative 0.12 passing net expected points per dropback at the time of his injury. He is at 0.24 for the full season, which is still double the league average, but it's weird. And that does account for turnovers. So the turnovers are baked into that number as well. So we've been pretty calm with the Chiefs offense all year, and that's definitely paid off at times. Like, they were great last week against Washington, totally fine there from a DFS perspective. Didn't pay off here. So what's your view of the Chiefs going forward after another disappointment on Sunday?
I feel like the answer, just efficiency wise, is to stay the course and keep going back there. But there are some concerning trends, not necessarily even within the team's offense. I was trying to pull up their turnovers in their red zone because it feels like they've had a good number um, of red zone turnovers, but 3 it looks like, so that's still pretty high. But I was watching that game on red zone, and I just noticed more and more that the team was just playing way off the line of scrimmage, the Titans, and not really blitzing, which we've seen teams do against the Chiefs. But I was trying to figure out, sometimes we have that narrative where, yeah, the teams are definitely playing Mahomes differently. But according to Next Gen Stats, the NFL average for the percentage of plays where a quarterback faces a blitz among quarterbacks with at least 100 pass attempts is 26.4% this season. Patrick Mahomes is being blitzed at a 10.7% clip, and nobody else is below 17.2%, and only 4 total passers are below 20%. So it's a really big outlier in terms of Mahomes and his percentage of plays where he's facing a blitz. For last season, by contrast, he was at 21%, so a lot closer to the NFL average. Now, what I need to say is that Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce aren't really facing more cushion. They're just not, the Chiefs are not being blitzed very heavily. And surprisingly, the percentage of plays where Hill and Kelce are double teamed, according to Next Gen Stats, is a lot lower than it has been in the past. So it does seem like it's a kind of, I don't want to say teams have figured out the Chiefs, but they're facing, collectively through 7 weeks now, they're facing some pretty distinct trends. And so it's not to do with the fact that I don't believe in Patrick Mahomes, because this is probably the worst Patrick Mahomes could play, and he's still twice the NFL average in efficiency. But it is concerning because, we've seen teams try to limit the downfield pass against Kyler Murray in the past. And it's hard to throw downfield and force it, which seems like maybe is what's happening with Mahomes. So, efficiency wise, I don't see any reason to change, but if there's a clear difference in what they're facing, like that's kind of it's careless not to take that into account.
So we talk about this a lot with the Chargers last year, the Rams, where teams basically just say you're not going to beat us deep. And it seems like every team has taken like that Vic Fangio style of defense is playing against Chiefs, regardless of what their like overall defensive philosophy is. And it forces the Chiefs to change the way they play. So that's like a concern because like you're saying, teams are playing them differently. They have to adjust. If I were to put trust in any head coach to figure that out, any play caller to figure that out, it'd be Andy Reid, especially because like they've got the personnel to make that work. And I think the route to making that work would be like more Travis Kelce usage. We haven't seen a whole lot of that this year. Like I haven't used a ton of Kelce just because he seems to have been lacking. I don't know. It's a feel type of thing. He just feels like less explosive from a production perspective, but like the volume has been there. He has double-digit targets in 4 out of 7 games. Just hasn't gotten a lot of deep work. So I think to me, maybe this means if I'm trying to get inside the head of Andy Reid and get inside the head of someone trying to game plan against these like too high defenses, it'd be okay. They're probably going to lean on Kelce more. So maybe that'd be the adjustment I make is as opposed to going all Tyreek Hill all the time or like, 60% Tyreek Hill in my Chiefs stacks. Maybe I change that to be 45% Tyreek Hill, 45% Kelce, and then 10% garbage. I don't know. I think that like that's a way that they might wind up attacking opposing teams. And that way I'm still heavy on Hill because Hill still has the highest upside in this team by a wide margin, no matter what the defense is doing. Because like the Eagles play that way and he obliterated them. So like they can still beat that. So I think that maybe I would just shift my ratios a bit to be heavier than I have been on Kelce relative to Hill, but still being Hill as a slight favorite there.
Yeah, I was very, very heavy on Tyreek Hill because of the downfield splits we've seen, and they've faced 3 teams inside the top 6 in yards per target allowed on downfield passes, and those were the 3 games where Hill was mostly kept in check. Mm-hmm. They faced 3 teams entering last week outside the top 20, and those are the 3 games where he had big games. The Titans were 31st on downfield passes in terms of yards per target allowed entering this game. So I figured, hey, this might be the recipe. They're not clicking whenever teams are actively trying to limit the downfield pass. And I thought this was a spot where I could gain some leverage because we've seen Tyreek Hill against similar defenses in terms of defending the deep ball just go off. And that's not really what happened yesterday. He had no downfield targets.
Yeah, he had none. Byron Pringle had 3 though. There you go.
Like that's concerning is in that spot where you would say, hey, Tyreek Hill's going to get a lot of downfield work. He didn't get any.
They need a bye. When is their bye?
I don't know if it's like the win-loss record that's like causing them to press as much too.
Yeah, it could be. That could be something, where they were playing fine before, but then they felt like they needed to play harder and are pressing now, and it's leading to some issues. Their bye is not until late November. Woof. Woof, woof, woof. That ain't great. I don't know. I think the big thing for me is I'm still going to be going towards them, but maybe I'll just shift a little bit towards Travis Kelce than I have been to account for the fact that they may be trying to beat these like can't get beat deep defenses. I still want to be heavier on Hill due to what he can do, but maybe that's the one alteration there. If any final thoughts for you on the Chiefs?
So they're Monday night next week?
Thankfully.
Yeah. So we don't have to worry about that on the main slate, but maybe if we see them struggle against the Giants, then maybe their salaries eventually will come down.
Maybe. Yeah, we'll see. Let's move now to the injuries from week number 7, starting off with one that hurt a lot. Miles Sanders carted off. He had an ankle injury. Kenneth Gainwell played half the snaps in a negative game script. Boston Scott stepped in and played 34%. Scott had more carries, 7 to 5 over Gainwell. He had 3 red zone carries compared to Gainwell's 1. But Gainwell had 8 targets. Scott had 2, and Gainwell also had a red zone target and scored while Miles Sanders was still healthy. So let's say Sanders probably going to miss time here. How are you viewing Kenneth Gainwell in this backfield?
It almost feels like how I would view Miles Sanders in a way, but with less certainty he would get goal line rushing work. So it's weird because he might play the majority of snaps, but be more of the receiving back. And then, so almost like I guess it'd be like a Chase Edmonds sort of situation to some degree. So all that is to say, probably not, I don't like him enough from a DFS standpoint to prioritize him unless the salary is super low.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think that's probably a good comp, Chase Edmonds, just because, like, although, like, the good thing for Scott or for Gainwell is he did get some goal line work in week 1 when they were facing Atlanta. Like, he's not a total, and like Boston Scott's not really a goal line type back either, but they could activate someone to account for that. So I don't know. They are facing Detroit this week. That's a game we'll probably have interest in. Name that salary for Kenneth Gainwell if we assume Miles Sanders sits.
Honestly, for me, he'd still have to be in like the 6,300 range.
I thought 66, just because the passing game work is nice, and he is 59.
Okay.
So
I had a feeling he might be below 6,000 still,
yeah.
which I think is fair, all things considered. However, that doesn't mean it's not a spot where it's like, oh, he's 59, so I'm gonna write him down. Actually, I don't have any paper with me, so I have to type these ones down today.
Yeah, I think he's a check back on this guy later. Not an automatic, but like a check back later. I would bet that he will be more popular than I'm comfortable with, but if I need the sour savings, we might wind up there. I think people Twitter loves Kenneth Gainwell, and I get it. But it's tough, I think.
Also Detroit, that'll get people there. 3.5 point road favorite.
Yeah.
In a dome, high total for relative to the.
It's kind of a fun game. There's not a lot of fun games on that slate, so it's not a bad one. Same game, Josh Jacobs ruled out due to a chest injury. Sounds like he'll be okay. At least avoided a serious injury, but Kenyon Drake led with a 40% snap rate. Jalen Richard also played 24% of the snaps. Drake had 14 carries, 3 targets, and 79 yards. The thing worth noting here is that Peyton Barber is a healthy scratch. If Jacobs were to miss a game, I would bet that Barber is active, and that would probably alter things quite a bit. Any interest here if Jacobs misses time?
Again, like the Gainwell thing, great for season long. This spot, probably good for Kenyon Drake season long wise, but we have a 12-game main slate. That's a pretty heavy main slate. Are they on the main slate?
They are on a bye.
I was gonna say they're probably on a bye. So honestly, by the time they'll be back on the main slate, but let's say that they were on the main slate this week, I still think it's a spot where I would be hesitant to want to buy into Kenyon Drake for all the reasons you said.
It'd be 18 carries, no targets for Peyton Barber.
Yeah,
like 5 carries and 8 targets or 5 carries and let's say 6 targets for Kenyon Drake. It'd be rough. Yeah. Zach Wilson left the Jets game due to a knee injury. Robert Saleh said they would know more today, but didn't sound season-ending by what he said. Sounds like Wilson probably missed a couple weeks, which is good. That he's not going to miss more time because it would be a bummer to miss that development time. Ty Johnson was checked for a concussion and did not return. Michael Carter had a big role with Johnson being out. He had 11 carries and 9 targets, turned it into 104 yards. Looked pretty good. But it might be Mike White starting. Doesn't sound like Mekhi Becton is close to returning just yet. White was at negative 0.14 passing net expected points per dropback. So Johnson may miss time. However, it may be with Mike White at quarterback. So how would we view Carter if Wilson and Johnson are both out?
Probably another spot where I would say good for season long, probably not relevant for DFS, especially if Ned Schneebly is your quarterback. So
Ooh.
Ned Schneebly.
What is that?
You ever see School of Rock?
No.
You know? Oh my!
I did watch The Holiday, which has Jack Black in it like a week ago. Does that count?
No.
Okay.
Man, you gotta watch School. Okay.
You love holiday movies. You should be excited that I watched The Holiday.
Yeah, but you should watch School of Rock.
I don't like music.
It's very uplifting. You'll love it.
I don't like uplifting.
But okay, on a more serious note, I don't think I could play a Jet in DFS. Like now, they are against the Bengals. They're hosting the Bengals next week. 44-point total, 8.5-point spread.
Their team total is implied total is 17.25. That's too high. Give me the under on
it's
that.
Higher than the Texans.
That's fair, but like it shouldn't be 17. Like if FanDuel doesn't have team totals up yet, I'd guess. But if they had that, I would take it right now without a hesitation. With no Zach Wilson, like is that game down? Did they take that game down? No, it's still there. Okay. Yeah, they don't have team totals up yet. That'll be like Tuesday or so.
Also, if it's still 44 and 8.5, that'd be 17.75, right?
Yeah. Under.
Yeah.
Under. I agree. It would need to be an extreme situation because like Tevin Coleman is also out this week. He'll probably be back next week. Like, I don't see enough here to really get excited.
And like even on like the 1 p.m. only slate, that's still 8 games.
Yeah.
So, like,
we're gonna move on.
Yeah,
the Jets are stupid. Johnny Smith left early with a shoulder injury. Hunter Henry scored again. I think he's got 4 straight games with a touchdown. Ran a route on 25 of 42 dropbacks. They did pull starters in the fourth quarter because they were too good. So if Jonnu misses time, that does open up like 3-ish targets per game because Jonnu has had no role effectively. Would you be in on anybody here if Jonnu were to miss time?
I think I would start to consider Henry simply for the fact that he does have presence in the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen him get 1.3 downfield targets per game over the past 3 games. And I'm not trying to say that Hunter Henry is an elite tight end, but we're always looking for tight end options. Even on a fuller slate. They play the Chargers, so it's a revenge game next week. So name that
Hunter Henry. I was trying to think of who's it. Okay, the guy you're talking about. Idiot.
So I feel like I'll probably be a little bit higher on Henry than you, but name that salary for Hunter Henry. You could do a lot worse at tight end than his peripherals right now, even though we don't love this offense.
Yeah. Probably like 56. I think that's where he was this past week. I think that's about right.
He's 55.
Okay. That's fair. Like that's a consideration.
Yeah.
Am I like jumping over the counter to get there? No, but like, it could be worse.
Hey,
right?
That's what I'm talking about with tight end though. We're looking for
Sorry, I was trying to update. I realized that I hadn't changed home road in my sheet here, so I should probably do that before I give out some dumb takes.
But that it's enough of a role for Hunter Henry, especially if Johnny were to miss time.
Yeah, it's enough. It would not push me any more towards like Jacoby Myers or anything like that.
Correct.
But
so I feel like people will wonder why we're not talking about. Are we talking about Damien Harris at all later?
His role didn't change.
Yeah,
he's just effective. There was no role change.
So yeah, that's kind of how I view it too. But I figure bigger game, people will want us to.
He had 18 adjust opportunities. He just happened to be good on them. Like it's the same role.
Also on red zone, I just somebody played some sprinkles of the Jets D.
Sprinkles?
Yeah.
Good for you because
yeah, but it just felt like every 5 minutes the Patriots were like inside the 20. It's like, well, I have no confidence that they're not going to score, and they just basically scored every time.
Joke's on me because I could have played the Tennessee defense for $100 less. So good job, Jim. Mike Davis got hurt late in Atlanta's game against the Dolphins. He had 4 carries and no targets, while Cordaro Patterson wound up with 14 carries and 5 targets. Cordaro played 73% of Atlanta snaps. Now, it's worth noting that snap rate was not inflated because of Davis's injury. He was at 83% in like the first half. So he actually was getting a legit role before Mike Davis got hurt. And then that led to a lot of goal line work for Cordaro late in that game. So let's talk about this both ways. Because I think that there's one view where if Davis misses time, but also one if he doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
How would you view Cordaro Patterson right now for the Falcons?
Okay, so let's make it simple and say Davis is out.
Sure.
Patterson's salary was $8,000 on Fanduel. I did not get there at all.
Correct.
This past week, even with a more extensive role in a great red zone role, I would be a little bit hesitant to go much past 8,000 just because this offense, Matt Ryan threw some downfield this week and it didn't look as bad as it had been, but I'd still have some concerns. Their total though is 25, which is probably totally average for next week.
Yeah.
Average is actually 23.2. So one of the better projections. So I would still have a hard time getting to 8,000 because I would imagine on a 12-game slate, we have more running backs. Of course, I haven't broken down the slate enough, but I would say like 75.
Yeah, probably about that. Because we look at snap rates a lot, but I tend to look at yardage because I want to know there's a baseline to upon which to build if you score a touchdown.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I want to view it. Because I want touchdown variance break in my favor, but I want it to matter. Like if you get 30 yards in touchdown, who cares? But if you get me 110 yards in touchdown, that does matter. Cordaro in 6 games this year has 100 plus yards 3 times, but also 67, 69, 61 in the other 3. So he's probably going to wind up being someone who is averaging, well, I can tell you, his average yardage is 88.2 per game. That goes up. That projection goes up with the snap rate increasing because he'll be out there more. So I would say 77 probably is where I'd be. I think he's kind of like we talked about how JD McKissick with no Antonio Gibson would be like DeAndre Swift. He's kind of like a more juiced up, better offensive version of DeAndre Swift is what I would say. So
his salary is 7,300.
Perfect.
So we were a little bit higher than that, which is probably pretty telling because I've been lower on him just because the rate at which he had been scoring had really driven up that salary to the point where it wasn't right. And, I have issues with the Falcons offense, but they're projecting to be one of the better offenses for next week's main slate. So
how did Calvin Ridley have 87 targets or 10 and do nothing with it?
26 yards or something?
Yeah, on 10 targets.
Crazy.
What's going on here? It's because Kyle Pitts is too good.
It's because Kyle Pitts, who I loved this week, just so everyone remembers, the one thing I got. It's hard because this offense is not flawless. That game will be in a dome. Carolina's defense, not quite what it was to start the season, but still not a defense that's like a super positive matchup. So I would say 7,300 has me intrigued for Patterson, but looking at the teams on the main slate, I feel like we're going to have a lot of running backs to pick from. So I don't know how much Patterson will actually get to.
That's fair enough. Okay, so final one here. Malcolm Brown ruled out with a quad injury. Myles Gaskin had 15 carries and 4 targets, played 63% of the snaps. Gaskin now has 3 games, at least a 60% snap rate, 5 games, at least half the snaps. He's like the lead back, but it's really hard to trust him. It's really hard to trust the usage. They're facing the Bills next week as 13.5-point dogs. I feel like even if you take Brown out of there, I'm going to have a really hard time getting to Gaskin. What about you?
Yeah, the reason that I jotted this down was obviously it's an injury and it's a running back who might step into a 60+% snap rate. I would expect him possibly even to get to 70%, especially if they're playing from behind. We've seen him get a lot of targets in that Buccaneers game specifically. For me, though, we're going to want access to the Bills offense. And so I wouldn't be against Gaskin, assuming his salary will be pretty low. just as sort of some bringbacks for some negative game script, similar to like a DeAndre Swift whenever I want to stack the team playing the Lions. So name a salary that you'd feel comfortable with within this particular game, expecting them to trail for
Like
Myles
57.
Gaskin. It's kind of where I would expect him to be.
Yeah.
He's 57.
But even there, I'm not like, I don't know. Like, what's his path to 20 points? I know he got in the Bucks game, but like, realistically, what's his path to 20 points?
Same sort of thing. Like 5, 6, maybe 7 targets.
I think I'm
30,
looking
40
for
yards.
a bring back there. Like, I just go to get sticky and just like deal with that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's more for me. It's more a question of, is Gaskin, assuming no Brown, is Gaskin enough for bring back potential?
Not really for me.
I would say he's in the conversation because I know the Bills are going to have high salaries. So
Yeah. Where would you rank him relative to Gesicki, Waddle, and assume Parker's back here too?
like probably last pretty
Okay,
easily,
okay.
but it's more of a, hey, if there's no Brown,
Yeah.
is
Okay.
is there enough here? And I would say, yeah, probably to help balance out the salaries
Fair enough.
for the Bills, because
I think that's a fair view of it.
yeah.
Okay, let's move to the role changes here and take a look at some more cheery subjects. Elijah Mitchell was the feature back in the 49ers offense right away. He played 66% of the snaps. He had 18 carries for 107 yards and a touchdown. No targets, but did run 14 routes, which is about half the dropbacks. So no passing game work for Mitchell in terms of targets, but like he was out there running routes. My concern is that he wasn't out there on third down. JaMychal Hasty, I think, might have played every third down in that game potentially. We can check that later on, but like that's my one concern here. What's your view of Elijah Mitchell right now on this team?
Yeah, I mean, we got to have some context with that game because it was just a downpour in terms of the receiving stuff, but we know that his receiving work is low. I think he's got 0, 2, 2, and 0 targets now through his healthy games.
I think it's a signal that I find the 2 to be encouraging. Like that's like, oh, okay, that's better than I thought.
It's like Derrick Henry. It's like, hey, you got 2 targets, like multiple targets.
Yeah.
Back in the day, back in the way back before Derrick Henry was an elite pass catcher.
He's still not an elite pass catcher. He just gets more work now.
I just like, I'm not a head coach. I am undefeated in my football career, 6-0. But so I feel like I have something worth saying. But I just never understood why like they don't try to throw Derrick Henry more screens
because he can't catch. He can't catch.
So he's never caught a pass in the NFL.
He's very bad at catching passes when he's wide open.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes
he's very awkward in space.
Yeah, sometimes he falls over.
I'm not saying I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that's why.
Yeah, I just I figure
very weird to watch. Like I get strange. Like it's kind of like a kid going through puberty where they're like kind of don't know what their body's like. I think that's what he does in the passing game. Again, I'm not saying they shouldn't do it. I'm just saying that's why they don't.
Yeah, I was trying to look up Hasty. Yeah, looks like 11 third down snaps for Hasty.
How many for Mitchell?
Out of 11.
Okay, so yeah, none.
So none for Mitchell.
So
that's rough.
Yeah, it is rough, but I think that the way I'd view Mitchell is the same way we viewed like Mostert at times last year before Wilson came back and before they were splitting things up. I would say he is someone who, like, if you're not going to get passing game work, you need 120 and 2 to pay off, or I guess no, you need 80 and 2 or 120 and 1 touchdown to pay off. But like in this offense, I think he can get there. So to me, I would say he's still playable, despite the fact that I'm going to assume there's not going to be a lot of passing game work.
Yeah.
So to me, if we're going to name that salary on Mitchell, they're playing the Bears, right?
Yeah, Bears, they are 4-point road favorites. Total is 43.5.
I have that spread larger. So I think they should be, I think that's wrong, right? I'm going to check my numbers on that later.
I don't know what you're talking about. But
I have them favored by 8. So that's weird. That doesn't seem right. No, I know what the actual spread is, but I think they should be favored by 8. Anyway, I'm going to go with $6,600 for Elijah Mitchell.
I think that would be too high for me.
Okay.
Because yes, we would assume that they play from ahead, but if they don't, and you're giving me,
Sure.
you're basically capping his snaps at roughly 2/3. We'll call it because he doesn't play on third downs apparently.
Or 2 minute
Um,
drill. Yeah.
so I would need it to be like 6,200, I think.
He is $5,800. Do you prefer Mitchell or Gainwell if we assume Sanders misses?
I would
Different routes to the same kind of production.
Yeah, very different. Probably Mitchell, but
Did I say Miles Sanders? I meant Kenneth Gainwell. I think I.
no, you said Gainwell with Sanders
Oh, okay.
out.
All right.
Probably Mitchell. Just
I trust the offense more, and I trust that he's going to get like the goal line work more.
yeah.
So I feel like I'll go Mitchell. They're both flawed, but like they're not out of play, I would say. Like they're both worth considering because the salary's low enough.
Yeah, I would, and I know I'm higher on Gaskin than you, but we're already to 3 potential value backs on the main
Do you put
slate.
Gaskin below those two?
In that game? So I would say in a vacuum, like for one-offs, I would say yes, he'd be third, but I'm probably more likely to play Myles Gaskin because I'm going to play the Bills a lot.
Gross. Kyle Pitts went bananas against the Dolphins. 8 targets, 7 catches, 163 yards. What? He lined up in the slot for 15 of his 31 routes. He was out wide for 14 of them. He was lined up as a traditional tight end on just 2 of those routes. He had lined up tight on 29% of his routes or his plays prior to this game. So they were willing to move him outside despite the fact that Calvin Ridley was back this week. So with the London game, we were like, okay, the bump in targets may have been because Calvin Ridley was out, but Calvin Ridley was active here, and they still peppered Kyle Pitts. So name that salary for Kyle Pitts against Carolina next week.
I would probably put him. So he was 6,100 this week. He, with that encouraging workload, the 4 downfield targets, he's probably got a 7 in front of his name. So I'll say 7 flat.
That's what I was going to say too. On the button with 7 flat. And for next week, he is $6,800. Very appropriate. He's the highest salary tight end. There's no Kelsey.
Ooh.
There is no Andrews next week. There's no Waller if he would have played.
No,
he's the highest salary
Foster Moreau.
Yeah,
who's basically Darren Waller.
Yeah. He deserves to be the highest salary guy. And I feel really good about him being there. That's my view of his role, is like he is where he should be.
Yeah, and I mean, he had a slow start to the season, but he's also pacing toward, I mean, he's got 19.8 and 22.4 Fanduel points in his past 2 games. He had a slow start, but he cleared 30 yards in his first 4 games each with no touchdowns. Like, that's a slow start for, like, let's say maybe like a Mark Andrews.
Sure.
But he's a rookie tight end.
Yeah.
Like, that's like a great slow start for a rookie tight end. And now they're playing him as a receiver. He's cleared 119 yards in his past 2 games. So he's a tight end now who has yardage upside. And you know how many other tight ends have yardage upside? 1. Like Kelsey can
Andrews
get to 100.
Does.
Sure.
Andrews has got to 100 a couple times recently.
So 2, I mean, Waller hasn't really shown that. So like the reason that tight end's so difficult from a DFS standpoint is it's not just rolling the dice on a touchdown, but for a lot of guys it is. Like a Hunter Henry we talked up.
Yeah.
Hunter Henry's not going to get you 120 yards.
No chance.
So you need those touchdowns.
And Kyle Pitts got you a $163 with Calvin Ridley active.
Yeah. So Kyle Pitts definitely worth that salary. Even though it's still a tight end position, it's still going to be volatile because it's a pass catcher without those consistent like carries and guaranteed touches. But tight ends with yardage upside are worth the investment because they can get you to 10 to 12 with yards and catches.
Yeah.
And then if they score, like we saw 2 weeks ago,
yeah,
that's pretty nice.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
I want to actively make sure I get there this week. I'm going to write that down, actually. Use Kyle Pitts. There we go. All right. I read my notes from last week and it was like, oh, Miles Sanders. I was like, whoops. He's awesome. No other takeaways there. Khalil Herbert had a huge role even with Damian Williams being back. He had 18 carries and 5 targets on a 79% snap rate, 133 yards. He's played great. So 2 questions here. How are you viewing Herbert while David Montgomery is out? And does his play impact your view of Montgomery once Montgomery is back?
I like Herbert with Montgomery out. He would be, let me see, who we talked about, Gainwell, Gaskin, Mitchell. I would probably put him on par with Elijah Mitchell or Eli Mitchell at the top of those value backs. You're making a face.
I put him above, I think.
Well, I was saying like equal footing.
I think he's like a half step above for me, though. Half step.
I would say role wise, yes. Adjusted for offense, that's what probably puts me more about equal. Yeah. So yeah, okay. I think sounds like we're about on the same page from that perspective. But yeah, I really like his role, and I like him as a player. He looks like a very capable running back, and I don't do a whole lot of like film analysis, but when I see a player who looks athletic compared to elite NFL athletes, like that, I put some value in that. So if the offense were clicking a little bit better, I would definitely have him as the clear one of the value backs we talked about so far. But I also feel like I've seen enough where David Montgomery is going to be difficult to play with as soon as he returns.
I think the good thing is we'll probably want a week of leeway with Montgomery anyway in terms of the injury, because it's a multi-week thing. So like we can be like, okay, we'll just hold off on everyone once he's back and see how the role develops. That's kind of the good thing here. Name that salary on Herbert facing off with San Francisco this week.
They're at home, 4-point underdogs.
Should be more.
Should be. Would you say 8?
I have 8. I don't know if that's that. Like that doesn't include anything from this week, so it'll probably go down because they were bad in the rain. But
I would say, and the thing that doesn't make this higher is just the offensive expectation. Their implied team total is below 20 points. I would probably say about 64.
Okay, I would actually be closer to like 68. I think just because of everything. He's 65 though. Like that's right around where you were. That's below where I was. If you give me him at 65 versus Mitchell at 57 and Gainwell down there, I feel like, I don't know. It's tough. It would be, we'd have to sort those out. I think we have to take a while to sort those out. I mean, it's a full trend by itself on Thursday.
Yes, but we're kind of racking up some value backs now.
Yeah.
And it looks like a pretty loaded running back slate.
Okay.
Just with the amount of teams that we have. So I don't know how viable these players will be unless we realize there's no receiver value, or Kyle Pitts is like the play at tight end and we need to kind of save some salary. So
yeah. We get Najee back, we get Eckler back.
Henry's there. Chubb's hopeful to return.
Yeah, I think that they'll probably still limit him with Dearness Johnson playing well though. Kamara,
Darrell Henderson against the Texans.
Sunday afternoon Lenny.
Jonathan Taylor against the Titans, Derrick Henry against the Colts.
Okay, wow.
So yeah, like
the running back's actually good for once. That's good.
Yeah, and so it'll be a week where the guys that just don't click on are the ones that score 25. But
yeah. So talking about the Patriots backs here quickly, Brandon Bolden was the guy who got the James White role back. Ramondre Stevenson ran more routes last week, but then all of a sudden he's inactive. Went back to Brandon Bolden. Damian Harris scored twice, had 106 yards and 14 carries. Are you bumping the way you view Harris at all here, or is this kind of just always in the range of outcomes?
I think this is when I was looking back on and been like, probably should have expected some efficiency from this team and some touchdown equity for Harris. But that's about it. I'm not really kicking myself that much with this team just sharing running back snaps to the point that they do.
I feel like he's going to get talked up next week because they're facing the Chargers, who are actively and choose to be bad against the rush. I think that's a mistake because the odds the Chargers get a big lead there are pretty high. So
name a salary you'd feel comfortable with.
64.
And name a salary you think Harris will be.
68.
So he's 69. I would say that feels where he probably should be. That's really not a salary that I would be actively targeting him, though.
He's Elijah Mitchell if I expected that team to lose. It's kind of like what he is.
Well, you got 3 targets in week 1, but no more than 2 in any other game.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'll keep being lower on him. If it burns me, it burns me. Rashad Bateman had a good role once again for the Ravens. He ran 29 of 47 routes and had 6 targets. One of those is downfield with a 12.1 yard ADOT. He's got
22% 22% target share on passes from Lamar the past 2 weeks.
Why are we discounting Tyler Huntley? Why are you tossing Tyler Huntley out of the
Well, I just wanted to make a note.
Tyler
also,
Huntley's great.
My note there was confusing, so I jumped.
Okay. 22% target share on the throws from Lamar Jackson.
Specifically from Lamar.
Weeks.
Yeah.
Only one of 14 targets has been downfield, but like you said, 12.1 yard ADOT. The numbers last week slanted by the fact they're facing a team that, runs that defense that doesn't want you to beat them deep. So I'm still okay being high in Bateman, but I think he is a clear 3 behind Marquis Brown, Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman. How are you viewing that pecking order right now?
Yeah, it's got to be that. Marquise Brown had 8 downfield targets, 321 air yards, which is the second most in a single game since Mike Evans had 329 in week 2 of 2016. You can say whatever you want about air yards. Even if a pass isn't catchable, it tells you that a team wants to throw the ball to someone.
Also,
downfield.
Lamar's been awesome as a passer, so air yards count there.
And Marquise Brown, I don't know. I lose context of cumulative fantasy points, and I don't know where Marquise Brown is on the season long rankings, but he could be a lot higher too if he caught some of those touchdowns against Detroit. So
and you can say, okay, he keeps dropping passes, he won't get those chances, but he keeps burning people. He's always open behind the defense. How does this happen?
Also, what were they doing in years past where it's like he got faster all of a sudden and more open. I feel
they didn't throw it downfield as much.
Yeah.
That was apparently a major offseason concentration for Lamar, was being able to throw outside the numbers. And we're seeing it. I know yesterday did not go well for their offense. I am still very high on them. I don't care. I'm very okay being high on them. Don't care.
Yeah.
They're not the main slate next week, but because they're on a bye, but I'll be on all of those guys. I think this is still an offense I want to believe in. Zach Ertz made his debut with the Cardinals. Really torpedoed any Rondale Moore progress, which is kind of what we had expected, I think. Zach Ertz ran a route on 19 of 32 dropbacks. He actually got yak. Really weird. Disorienting to see. Rondale Moore had 14 routes run and 32 dropbacks. Ertz had 5 targets. That was tied with Christian Kirk for second on the team. DeAndre Hopkins is up to 26% of the targets in 4 games since he had that rib injury. So I think that, I know we're talking Ertz here, but how are you viewing them with Ertz in the fold? And I'm getting higher and higher on DeAndre Hopkins. Am I stupid?
No. 32% of the targets in this game, he's kind of forged out ahead as expected, which is something that we were tracking, but we were both expecting him to, take the lead more comfortably in terms of long-term target share, which he's been doing. The problem for me, and I don't know if I'm mistaken here, it feels like the yardage upside for Hopkins is a lot lower than it used to be. But his salary isn't really reflected with that. I pinned him as one of the most obvious positive touchdown regression candidates for this season, and he's
you didn't think it'd be all touchdowns though?
I didn't think it'd be all touchdowns, and I thought there would be more guaranteed volume, which he's getting to. Pretty sure he was banged up for a bit.
Yeah, so if you look at the 4 games since the rib injury, he has 3, 4, 1, and 1 deep targets in those games. That's fine, but it's not you're right in making the yardage upside point. That's a fair point to make there.
So it's hard to view him. And they're Thursday night?
Yeah, they play Green Bay. I wish that game were on the main slate. It'd be sick.
I'll get a fun one to talk about on Thursday while people ask me start-sit questions for the weekend. Yeah, I think for me, it's really Hopkins as the clear one. But with Ertz in the fold, I mean, he'll be viable with the 60%. This is his first game with the team. 60% of the routes, 50% of the snaps. That's encouraging for a tight end learning a new offense like within a week. Downfield target, red zone target.
You get an end around rushing attempt inside the 10, which is very stupid, but hey, it's a thing they did.
Tied for the
team.
I think
Zach Ertz. I think burners, man.
I saw a quote from him. I think it was he's never seen this much like green in the middle of the field before. Which I don't know. He played with the Eagles. So there's a lot of green with that team, but I don't know.
Grass is green, Zach. Let's went to Boise. But you didn't.
So yeah, Hopkins clear one, and then I don't want to sound stupid here, but it might be Ertz too, just because he's a tight end.
Depends on the salary. I might go Kirk too.
It's between the two, yeah. But
yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one for sure. I think the good thing is when we get Kyler in stackable games, I can just go harder at Hopkins and feel fine about it. I know the yardage upside is a concern, but like if it's a competitive game, the yardage upside increases because the passing volume increases. So I think that's one thing to consider there. With no Antonio Brown, Mike Evans went absolutely bananas. He had 3 touchdowns. Chris Godwin had 1. He led with 11 targets. He also had 2 deep targets to Evans 1. And Tom Brady threw 15 times inside the red zone, which is something the Bears have done 17 times all year. So they face the Saints next week. That's going to be one of the better games to stack. We know the Marshawn Lattimore, Mike Evans thing, but just in general, how would you view Evans and Godwin if Brown were to miss more time?
Evans and Godwin, okay, like way up. Yeah. It was ridiculous to see after Mike Evans, I think it scored possibly all 3 times. They were throwing him like screens on the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
Which feels like a move I would have done in NCAA football 06 when I was trying to win the Heisman with my quarterback, or like maybe if I made myself a tight end, just be like run out of bounds at the 1.
Tom Brady, Heisman contender.
And then throw those touchdowns. But yeah, it was crazy to see. We know this team wants to throw the ball as much as possible. That is very encouraging, especially for a player as good as Evans, as good as Godwin. These guys can get downfield work. More specifically, Evans, obviously, although ironically, what's that?
Godwin got 2 this week.
Yeah, I was going to say, ironically, I have Evans with 1. But you know, we know that the high leverage workload is there for both of them. So, you know, rest up, AB. Let's actually stack the Bucks with some confidence for once.
And we can stack them even if he's back, but we can't stack them with confidence. Now it's the key word you use there. So salaries for next week. I'm trying to not to look at other ones. Evans is $7,500. Godwin's still 72. Like, I think even if Antonio Brown's back, that's totally fine in that game for Godwin.
Brady's 83. That'll be a dome game.
Yeah.
Antonio Brown, 73. So
Jameis revenge game.
Yeah, that's true. They'll be on a short week. So it's stuff like this that I pinpoint on Monday. It's like short week for the Saints.
Yeah.
In a dome, just maybe behind Tom Brady. But although, I mean,
there are going to be a lot of games to stack on that slate. So
also, I mean, 4 touchdowns, but not even 25 Fanduel points is kind of the reason that we're not usually high on like passing only players. But
yeah, Tua was the quarterback in the perfect lineup. Tight game quarterback. Maybe there's a reason we do this stuff. Who knows? Not that I was on Tua, but
right.
You know, like the overall process. Yeah.
And for
the process.
Yeah, and it feels like, I don't know, like I'm not taking responsibility, but I look back at the stuff that I was on, and I at least know that like I can justify what I was thinking, and that helps me.
What time is this game? It's Sunday afternoon, Lenny, once again next week. He is 72. I think that is still a really, really good number. Like we don't talk about running backs getting burned by a positive script, but he got burned by the script being too positive.
Yeah. Although, do you have any concerns about like touchdown equity from him? I know we saw him score on the ground early on, but
okay, so because he's gotten some red zone targets, I believe. Let me
like I know it's weird to say because he's got 4 touchdowns over his past.
So if we look at the 3 games with Geo back, I'm cutting you off. I know he had 9 red zone opportunities this past week out of 25. That's 40% or 36%. That's good. The week before, 8 out of 18. That's 44%. That's good. 4 out of 17 the week before that. So, like, if you look at the games with since Geo came back, he is at around 36%. That's okay for a running back. But the yardage has been good. Overall usage has been good. So I would say, do I have a concern? Yes. Is it enough to make me think that he is oversouted at 72? Absolutely not.
I would agree.
It's fair to bring up, though. Fair to bring up for sure. Okay, let's go to situations to monitor. Other stuff that caught your eye. What were you noticing in week 7?
So Nick Chubb is, quote, hopeful to return in week 8. But if he doesn't, that would be very noteworthy, and we get another potential value back with Jarvis Johnson. Who do they play next week?
Cleveland.
Cleveland.
They are 3-point dogs to
Cleveland
maybe Case Keenum. Maybe Case Keenum. Or sorry, no, it's Case Keenum who's playing.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah. He plays for Cleveland. Good job, Jim.
They are 3-point favorites over Pittsburgh with all their injuries.
I had that game as a pick 'em before I input Case Keenum if he starts.
Either way, Johnson could be somewhat viable. 69% of the snaps, which is very nice. 22 carries, 146 yards, and a touchdown. 15 routes and 2 targets. That's a really good role. So that'd be something to monitor, although we're kind of realizing there are a ton of running backs. So I'm looking forward to the salary scroll to see what jumps out most.
Yeah.
Jarvis Landry and his return. I mean, I just don't like this offense enough to even.
And Jarv got hurt too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I was surprised. Not that I'm big on the Steelers, but
one thing I would say is that I think even if Jarvis himself is not viable, he lifts the floor of the offense by being there if he's healthy. Because like when you watch the Browns, it seems like they're missing an outlet type guy, and Jarvis can be that guy. I have not liked this. I've been down on them in general from an offensive perspective, but like I think getting Jarvis back does help from an overall expectation perspective. It might torpedo the target shares, but like I think it helps. It raises the overall efficiency of the offense.
But does that matter then?
It might not.
Like envision,
let's say, from a betting perspective, and not for DFS.
Let's say even Nick Chubb is out, so we have a potential value spot with Jarvis Johnson. Do you envision using a single Cleveland Brown next week on a 12-game main slate against the Steelers?
Probably not.
Yeah. I mean, it's just we're trying to find context. Look forward.
I'll use Najee Harris.
Yeah,
that count. See you, Brown. Stop confusing the teams.
He is not.
Oh, unfortunate. Okay, what else you got here?
Fortunate vindication for me. Aaron Jones not paying off at a $8,500 salary. 6 carries, 5 targets, so 16 adjusted opportunities on 38 snaps, which was 72%. So he's kind of been around 60-40 split over A.J. Dillon. Was higher than that with the snap rate, but the role wasn't there, and Green Bay threw a ton. So kind of fortunate vindication, I think, is it could have been worse.
Say though that snap rate is good, and he was not on the injury report at all last week for the first time since week 3 or something like that. So I would say, despite the bad usage, my arrow is up on him. It is not up enough to justify 85. That's still way too high, but it's improving from where it was, is what I'd say.
So I know they're not on the main slate, but tell me a salary.
77. He was 75 for me last week. He's 77 now, I think.
I could see that.
Okay. Cool.
Like a small increase, but not
correct
substantially so.
Yep.
Jamar Chase obviously dominated and stole all the headlines, but T. Higgins has a really good role. He had 15 targets, 4 downfield, just 62 yards. But in his healthy games, Higgins has a 27% target share with Chase at 24% and Tyler Boyd at 18% in those games.
But he's not doing much with it. It's so like he's not Robbie Anderson bad, but like he's not doing a whole lot. I like T. Higgins, but like it's weird. And also like if you told me his target share would stick, I expect some regression on 27%, but like they probably want to throw that Jamar Chase guy the ball more. So like I think if we're asking, okay, what's more likely here? Will T. Higgins start to produce on the volume and keep getting the same volume, or will his volume come down and Chase's go up? I think that the latter is more likely.
What likelihood do you think it is that T. Higgins, even when his target share most likely, almost assuredly comes down, that it will be like below 20%?
And like above 20%.
But like I'm saying, sure, give Jamar Chase the 27 and give Higgins the 24%. The salary discrepancy is always big. And I know the efficiency difference is like a cavern, but we're getting someone who just got 15 targets and we're trying to like nitpick it a bit. And, we've seen some guys get heavy targets and not do a whole lot, but T. Higgins, I think, is better than what he's been producing.
Better than Robbie Anderson.
Yeah. So like, I'm going to keep an eye on this one.
I will say that his efficiency is going to go up next week. They're facing the Jets. So that game stinks, but he'll do something with his target this time.
What salary would you have interest in? Because I'll
6,000.
Jamar Chase his salary is 8,200.
Fair.
It is. Higgins is 63.
A little high.
But in a game where it may be a little bit more competitive, I'm starting to have some more intrigue with T. Higgins with the workload that he's actually had. Other things I noted: Marquis Brown 8 downfield targets, 321 air yards, which I already gave out my stat.
Pretty good.
Dallas Goedert, Kyle Pitts, both 4 downfield targets.
Dallas Goedert had never had more than 2 in a game before that. His entire career.
Pretty big role. And then with no Darren Waller, Foster Moreau played every snap for the Raiders, ran 28 routes, 6 targets, 2 in the red zone. So basically was just Darren Waller.
Except he got 60 yards. Sorry. I was going to use Darren Waller yesterday. Very unfortunate. But well, it wouldn't have mattered because I would have stacked with Miles Sanders, but whatever.
Yeah, I used Moreau on the 4 p.m. slate, but
oops. Oh, well.
And they're on bye, so Waller will probably be back, but if that lingers, I think Moreau has some viability.
Yeah. Oh, well. It was good while it lasted. My one note here is that we're getting a better read on the Titans pass catchers when they're fully healthy. We got 3 full games now with them. A.J. Brown, 26% of the overall targets, 54% deep. Julio's at 18% and 23%. So I think what we're seeing is there is a clear separation between these two guys where Julio is in play because, he's getting usage. But A.J. Brown is like I hate the word alpha. It's used in so many stupid contexts. It's just the dumbest word of all time. But he is the alpha receiver on this team, if I'm going to use that word that I hate. I think a proper salary for A.J. Brown, 9-ish targets, 8 to 9 targets, probably 2 or 3 downfield, but like massive levels of efficiency. I would say he's like a $7,700 receiver. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say that's about right. He's 76. They're playing the Colts next week, so it'll be dome game. One of the higher totals so far. You said before the show.
I'm going to guess 51.5 because 51 is a key number, and they're going to want to sucker us.
I feel like
it's up. 48. Bet the over.
Wait, it's at 48.
Up. Bet it up.
Wait,
get it now. Go.
But I had it open at 49.5.
It's at 48 right now. Go bet it. I'll handle the opening philosophy changes. You go bet this. Let's move now to philosophy changes. Green Bay had a 73% early down first half pass rate. That is over 16 plays. That they were at 54% the 4 prior weeks. So they were about league average, and then suddenly they were not. So they're throwing more often. That's kind of interesting because previously it's been just Devontae Adams, who I've been willing to use. I had Devontae Adams in every single Aaron Rodgers lineup this week, which is not a lot, to be fully honest. But Lazard got 6 targets. I think they might have all come on one drive. Aaron Jones had 5. Big shot Bob Tunyon had 5 and finally got more than 10 yards, which is good. Randall Cobb at 4. So usages are spread out, but they're throwing more. I feel like that's kind of encouraging. What about for you?
It's encouraging.
Maybe noteworthy is a better word.
Noteworthy, yeah. I mean, they're not on the main slate, so we'll have to overreact to this on the single game slate and, try to pinpoint like Lazard. But even I feel like if they were one of the, let's not even include them on the main slate and make it a 13-game slate, but remove like the worst game and put them on the slate, I don't know if it's enough where I would be considering like Lazard or Tunyon to a big degree. So I don't know if I'm quite there myself.
Lazard's not a big yardage upside guy, which is tough on a full slate. Fine for single game, but tougher on a full slate. Tunyon is disappointing still. Cincinnati and Atlanta also had early down first half pass rates over 70% in week 7. That's up from around 60% for both those teams in the 4 games leading in. And I think the noteworthy one there is Cincinnati, because we had talked a lot about the Bengals earlier on this year as being a team that was running a lot. It seemed to safeguard Joe Burrow as their offensive line gelled, as he healed up from his knee injury. They're actually going back to what they were previously. And I feel like that's a good thing for everyone involved, including Joe Mixon. Mixon didn't have great usage yesterday, but like, I think that's a good thing for him too, if the offense will be more efficient because of throwing more. So I think that's a plus.
Jeez. T. Higgins, 172 air yards last week. Or I guess
that's good, because again, they weren't throwing the ball downfield to him before. They did a couple times on Sunday, so that was good.
4 downfield, 2 red zone.
Yeah, he had 1 deep the entire year. I think before that.
Well, missed some time too.
Yeah, but still. Tennessee, they had a good matchup against the Chiefs from a ground game perspective, but still did throw a bit more. They threw 54% of the time on early downs in the first half. It was 45% over the previous 4 games. I think this is probably a result of AJ Brown and Julio Jones being back. I think for me, Brandon, I think that this is going to be the game of the week from a stacking perspective for DFS. Colts Titans
very easily could be. So we can talk about like Michael Pittman and what we saw from him last night, but I just wanted the reason I noted this was obviously it's up from a horrible pass rate to like closer to league average. Derrick Henry looks a little bit slower to me. I just wanted to it feels like it's taking him longer to stand back up, and that's why I don't like. That's why I don't watch. That's why I don't watch film.
Oh, I got you. I thought you meant like slow as like. Did you watch Monday night? Like when
no.
Okay, I got you.
Like he still got that, but it's
slower to get up.
He's got so many more touches than like anyone else. That
I
was wondering if they would be
gassed.
Yeah, like if they're maybe we'll throw it 55% of the time.
I think you're implying he's mortal, and you should rethink that.
So that's honestly the reason I jotted that down is. I'm not down on Derrick Henry. I'm just like it because I have him in a lot of season-long leagues.
So you're getting nervous.
So I'm just
Okay, fair enough. I guess that. Eagles did actually commit to the run, which is something they had hinted at this week, despite Sanders getting banged up. Their early down first half pass rate was 41% this week. It had been in the 70s the previous 4 weeks. I don't know if that benefits Gainwell given the body type, but also Boston Scott's not really the kind of dude you want to run a whole bunch. So I don't know. I think that the bigger takeaway may be that their games are lower scoring and less stackable going forward. I think that's kind of my bigger takeaway. What about for you?
Yeah, like lowers me on Jalen Hurts too. I'm still fine with him with the rushing, but
sure.
Like you want rushing quarterbacks who also you feel like can throw the ball. And I know that everyone has concerns about Jalen Hurts and his passing efficiency, but there are reasons to be higher on his passing efficiency long-term with Lane Johnson back. But if they're going to just go away from throwing the ball, then it feels more like maybe like a Lamar Jackson.
Early career Lamar Jackson.
In years past.
Guess who's on their practice squad and guaranteed to be active and frustrating in week 8?
A running back?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'll know it when you say it, but I don't know if
you will. Jordan Howard. He is still there.
Yeah.
The new practice squad rules are disorienting, is what I will say. He's going to be there. He's going to get goal line work. It's going to be great. Okay, let's move now to our salary scroll for week number 7. Let's start off at quarterback and just shout out to ZC stuff that stand out to you.
Okay. I'm actually looking forward to this because it's a bigger slate with 2 extra games from the past few weeks.
I've got one that stands out to me.
One thing that jumps out to
Carson
me,
Wentz. It's $7,200.
that's saying a lot coming from you.
I know.
The thing that jumped out to me first that there are only 4 quarterbacks on a 12-game slate with a salary above 8,000.
Yep.
That's Josh Allen at 88, Jalen Hurts at 84, Tom Brady at 83, and Matt Stafford at 82.
Justin Herbert is 79. Not opposed. But Tannehill's 75, Wentz is 72. I feel like that's not bad. I know that they're not the most exciting names, although you do get the Tana Thrill nickname if you want it. But you know, it's not bad.
Yeah. She's not looking like a super deep quarterback slate despite 12 games.
Trevor Lawrence is 67 if you decide you want to get some action there. I'm not going to do that, but like he's playing well and they're facing a really bad defense. I don't know if that's the right process to take there, but like, just point it out.
Coming off a bye, which I feel like can only be good for them.
Yeah.
A bye and that win. Maybe they'll have some
win juice in them.
Yeah. So overall, I think the Tennessee Indy quarterbacks you pointed out are probably undersalaried or salaried fairly enough in that game to like, but
yeah,
Josh Allen's got a big spread. The salary's heavy at 88. I don't know who would be my.
It's weird because none of our rushing quarterbacks outside of Ertz are here because there's no Mahomes, there's no Kyler,
no
Lamar. So those are the guys I've used all year, almost exclusively.
Yeah. So first impressions of my QB1 for the week, probably just Josh Allen, even with the spread and the salary, but it might be Tom Brady number 2.
I think that's a fair ranking. No objections there. Let's move to running back. Derrick Henry is 10.5. Najee's 9,000. I think that's appropriate. It seems high, but I think it's appropriate is the way I'd phrase it.
Yeah, that workload's just...
He hasn't scored more than 21.7 Fanduel points this year. So, he kind of needs to get you 2 touchdowns, I think.
Coming out of a bye,
he can do that.
Coming out of a bye, you think that there's no workload concerns either. So, and it
do feels
like
him or Eckler at 87.
So Eckler's, and the Chargers are hosting the Patriots. I think I'd probably that's tough. Just because Najee's never gonna have the better game than or offensive expectations. I'd probably lean Najee just for the unfadable workload, basically.
I'd probably go Eckler for the game, I think.
That's
thing for me.
James
Robinson's oversalaried at $8,200. That's good.
So we're talking about this game a lot. Tennessee Indy. Jonathan Taylor, 8,500. Fair for you?
He leads the league in red zone opportunities, red zone share. 50%.
Yeah.
Half of their plays in the red zone outside of sacks have been Jonathan Taylor runs or targets. It's absurd. I think it's fair. I don't think he's undersalaried, but I think it's fair. Lombardi.
I've been on DeAndre Swift all season. 79's probably a bit steep.
It's a good game. Not a bad game, at least.
Yeah.
Darrell Henderson, 77. That's not bad.
No, he played a lot of snaps again. Just didn't really get a whole lot.
His yardage upside is disappointing.
That's fair. I feel like Mixon against the Jets will be a popular play.
Why is Alex Collins 7,000? Get out of here.
Probably safety there.
Yeah.
So Dearness Johnson is 67. I think that'd be too high in that game to want to go there with all the other backs to pick from.
Oh boy.
Chuba Hubbard, 66. I can't do it again.
Nope.
Antonio Gibson's down to 60.
I was going to make a PJ Walker joke. I'm not going to. Unless PJ Walker plays. Yeah, I think that it really is. It's Gainwell and Mitchell as being the guys who might be salary savers in order to get access to the other really good running backs. I think based on the running back landscape, I might be inclined to try to get to Tannehill and Wentz just because the salaries are so low and it can allow me to get to those really good running backs.
Yeah. So we like Gainwell and Mitchell fine.
Mm-hmm.
And what was Khalil Herbert? 65.
65, yeah.
Definitely with that salary a bit lower.
Yeah. Yeah, because like he's too close to Lenny at
Lenny,
72,
Cordaro.
Mixon, Patterson.
If we get Cordaro without Mike Davis, I will have to play some.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping. Well, we don't have Kelsey or like Waller or Andrews, and we know that Pitts is at the max at 68. So that helps.
It's a good running back slate.
With the running backs trying to get there.
There are only 2 wide receivers, as I moved there, sorry, who are above $8,000. It's Cooper Kupp at 92 and Jamar Chase at 82. Everyone else is $7,800 or lower, led by Debo, MF, and Samuel at $7,800. He keeps paying off, man. 100 yards again last night in a monsoon.
Yeah.
My baby. AJ Brown at 76 is a little bit too low. A little bit. Well, maybe a bit. Evans at 75 is interesting.
I love DJ Moore.
Why is Stephon Diggs $7,300?
Oh boy.
Oh,
no.
all right. Writing that down.
Well, that's gonna help with Josh
Offset
Allen.
Allen's salary. Yeah. Why is he 73? Why is Stephon Diggs lower salary than DK Metcalf tied to Geno Smith?
So
Or Terry McLaurin tied to Taylor Heineke.
So would you play Josh Allen at 81 and Stephon Diggs at 8,000? Because I would.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the same. All right, that helps.
So my takeaway is stack the Bills.
You know what? I think you might be the only person who says that for this week.
I know. No one else has ever thought of this ingenious take. Ingenious take. Other thing about them is they're kind of like the Bucks, where when they're up big, they don't really care. They just kind of keep just pounding away. So I think that's good for them.
I do think that like Cortland Sutton's got a good role. So does Calvin. So Cortland Sutton, Calvin Ridley, right around 7,000. Just air yards like heroes, but
like Diggs is 73.
Yeah. So like I don't know if it's gonna matter too much.
Right. Okay. Pittman 66. That's way too low.
Manny's 67.
Pittman should be like $800 more than Manny.
Yeah.
Julio 65. I think it's a little high, but that's fine.
Oh boy. The 6,000 range, I feel like, again, I talked about this last week. I feel like it's just not.
Why is Cole Beasley within $1,200 of Stephon Diggs? What are we doing? Depending on usage this week, Marquez Callaway is $5,900.
Brandon Cook's revenge game, which it typically is statistically.
Which one?
So at the or hosting the Rams.
Nope.
I mean,
nope.
Like Brandon Cooks has Brandon Cooks has like the best
workload,
but I just can't do it.
Devontae Parker's 57. If he gets in a full practice by Friday, I could be into that as a bring back on the Bills stacks. It's fine. Odell is 57. Let's see how far we've come.
Speaking about that, Allen Robinson even farther down to 56. So
Zach Pascal gets volume but has no yardage upside. Kind of annoying.
So honestly, my initial read on the slate is the Bills are obviously undersalaried with Diggs and Allen, at least.
Yeah.
Like Manny's oversalaried. I guess Dawson Knox is hurt, so that might probably have something to do with like Beasley and Manny's salaries. But so like my initial takeaways through wide receiver are Bills are undersalaried, but we want to have salary for running backs. However, not a whole lot of like $5,000 receivers are popping, so that's going to be a bit tricky, and that makes me assume that Kyle Pitts will be like I don't know, like collateral damage or whatever, like where I'm just like, I can't get to Pitts because I don't have value at receiver to get there. And that's scary because Pitts is like a value receiver with that workload.
So let's go to tight end. Dallas Goedert's 59 again.
Okay.
That's not bad with the 4 deep targets this past week. Noah Fant is 58. Jerry Jeudy should be back this week. What's Judy's salary? Jeudy! Ooh, 6,000. Dang it. I saw the zeros. I thought it was 5.
Ricky Seals-Jones, 54. Played every snap again, I think.
CJ Uzoma, a.k.a. Travis Kelce in Kelsey's old hometown, is $5,700. Tyler Higbee just going to keep on beating my head so hard at 53. But like it's not been bad. He had 3 more red zone targets. He had a season high 8 targets this week, 5 receptions. I'm just going to keep on doing it. Just going to keep on using Tyler Higbee. What could go wrong? Your boy Pat Freiermuth is $4,900.
Love him.
Dan Arnold.
What did Cole?
He kind of looks like Dan Campbell in his picture. Dan Arnold does.
Cole Kmet, 69% route rate, 6 targets.
How many yards?
4.68 OT.
Ooh.
Yeah, I don't think I can get back there.
Tommy Tremble had a good snap rate in the first half for Carolina. Didn't do a whole lot in the second half. His snap rate finished around 53%, I think. Right around where it was previously. So I'm probably not going to get there yet at 46, but keep an eye on him still.
So
I feel like it's just Higbee. I'm going to go Higbee or Pitts. Gesicki is a run back, but
I mean, Seals-Jones still 54.
Yeah. And then Logan Thomas is 1 more week on IR, but he's playing Denver. Like the team upside in that game is really bad.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else sticking out to you?
It's just again, I was hoping to get some value spots at tight end, but I feel like I need to prioritize Kyle Pitts. I should probably save this for my.
Okay. Note to future me. What is your note to future Brandon?
Find ways to prioritize Kyle Pitts.
Okay. Mine is use Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, there's that. But am I right where it feels like what helps is there's not a whole lot of quarterbacks to allocate salary to anyway, but there's not a ton of screaming value at receiver or tight end. There is value at running back.
That means we're passing.
But there's also studs at running back.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Trying to find a defense I can put in here as a filler. They're all bad. Oh boy. Oh gosh.
This Dolphins.
I don't want. No. Not at that level of it's Monday. Okay, Chargers. Sorry, Mac. So if I do Josh Allen, Diggs, and Higbee, 69-40 left. That is going to make it tough at receiver, honestly. So I think we are going to have at least one value back.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to spend down there based on the early look.
Yeah, and I mean, we always roster 3 running backs on FanDuel, so this is definitely a week where we have enough.
I was thinking about that in the shower today. I was like, should I stop doing that?
Statistically, it's the right call.
Previously, yes. I think this week it will be because there's so many running backs, but I think I may be more flexible on
smaller slates. I've been tallying up for preparation for probably our favorite podcast of the year, at Thanksgiving show. I've been tallying up some optimals on smaller slates, and the split at flex on smaller slates, like 4 games, about 2 to 4 games, it's about even between running back, receiver, and tight end actually on.
Yep.
But that's optimal lineup, so it's just takes the outlier performances. But I still think on a full slate, running back's still the right call. Mostly, I would feel differently if there were like 10. No, 10's kind of aggressive, but like 5 or 6 value receivers that I felt good with, and no value running backs. But we have some value backs, so it's probably going to be a week where we get one of the at least like Herbert and below. But I probably won't have too much Herbert, and just take the like sub 6K guys.
Yeah. My note is just use the Bills. Use Stephon Diggs specifically, but get to Josh Allen too. But Diggs is going to go absolutely bananas, I think, this week. Focus on the backs, the value backs, decide which one we can trust the most, because I think we'll need them. And use Kyle Pitts. I think that is the correct takeaway here.
Diggs is just going to be the mega chalk, though.
Don't care.
It's one of those things I don't care about right now, but by Sunday I'll be like, you know what? I'm smarter. I'm smarter than this. And
oh
then,
no. Tragedy is struck. Not in real life. Don't get mad. Sorry, I should preface it. Tragedy has struck, though. Cordaro Patterson is no longer wide receiver eligible. Why? Why have our people forsaken us?
He specifically said, don't label him.
They have done it. He should have been tight end eligible. What's going on here? Gosh. Put him at quarterback, What could go wrong?
So honestly, though, initial looks at the games makes the slate look kind of gross and uninviting, but I feel like between balancing the value at running back and trying to make sure that we're not, I just, like, when I build my lineups, it's with all these running backs, it's going to want to default to 2 value receivers, and there don't seem to be enough of those. So
I think it'll be a mid-range running back week again. Like, it might hurt not to get to a lot of, Najee, stuff like that, Eckler, but like checking out Patterson, checking out Fournette, checking out those guys, in addition to like the value running backs, I think that might be the way we play things this week.
Yeah, realistically, first glance, I'll be lower on Najee, Eckler, even Jonathan Taylor, just salary-wise, like with what I can justify.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I think we are set for week 8. Let's just fill out lineups right now and feel good about those.
Honestly, I would probably build better lineups on Monday morning.
Yeah, I should do that. I'm going to go do that now. That is all that we have here for today. We are going to do our full Week 8 preview on Thursday. That's on the Fanduel YouTube page at 10 a.m. live, recording there. And then it'll be up on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed after that. And exciting times here on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed, because daily NHL and NBA podcasts are back once again via Tom Vecchio. We have PGA tomorrow for is it the CUDA this week?
It is the Butterfield Bermuda Championship.
I saw the Uda at the end, and I just didn't cluster. I was like, it's a CUDA. I thought they moved it to be a standalone. That's upsetting. Anyway, we'll talk about that tomorrow. NASCAR Friday, UFC later on this week. A lot of good stuff. So make sure you are subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. Brandon, if people have questions for you on Twitter, where can they find you there?
I'm at Gadula13, GDULA13.
And I am at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Big thank you to everyone for tuning in for today. Good luck to you with your Monday night slates. Good luck with your NBA, NHL lineups. Until we talk to you Thursday, we'll see you then to preview week number 8. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire.